Hello and welcome to the Quincy Access Television Studios. I'm Mark Crosby. Thank you for joining us for In Your Neighborhood, a program that looks at various wards throughout the city and helps you to stay informed. Today we will be visiting the area of the city which I grew up in. That would be Ward 2. And with us as our tour guide is the city councilor from that ward. That would be Anthony Andronico. Anthony, welcome back.
Great to be here again. You know, always nice to give an update to the people of Ward 2 and the city of Quincy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I grew up in Ward 2, Penns Hill. My mom still lives there.
That's right. You know, we got Penns Hill all the way to Quincy Point, so you know, sometimes it's a long ways to walk, but it's important that everyone in every neighborhood know what's going on.
Absolutely. It's great exercise.
It is, yes.
And of course, Ward 2 has a fabulous open space right in the Penns Hill area, and that's Faxon Park. And there's walking trails in there.
Right, yeah, there are two walking trails that are up there. You know, we've got the red trail and the blue trail. You know, I want to give thanks to the Boy Scouts, the scouts that went in and to help create those, and it's been fantastic, especially during the pandemic where we got more people working from home. I've seen, you know, I think the licenses for dogs are up 100% over the last year within the city of Quincy too.
No surprise.
I know, great place to go walk your dog, get some exercise, go for a jog, and just go be with your family too on the weekends and those sunny days. Not so many right now with the weather we've been having recently too.
True, and we'll get to that actually. Why don't we start there? The recent storm that has really crippled most of the South Shore. How did your ward fare?
We fared all right. You know, we had some larger trees that had to come down. Right around the corner from me, actually, at the Bradford Street Playground, was a really, really tall oak that had fell. Luckily, no houses were damaged over there, but, you know, for the most part, people have fared okay. I know some folks are still dealing with some power outages. I think we're around 2,000 right now of people in Quincy that are still out, but hopefully in the next 24 hours we'll be able to get that resolved and you know, folks can get their power back on. We're much more fortunate, I think, in Quincy than we are in some other places in the South Shore. We're still dealing with some major outages.
We do have our next image to appear on screen is the Four River Clubhouse. There are some renovations going on there. We do have exterior shots, but
right.
There is work being done in the interior.
Yeah, so the clubhouse has been closed for about a year now. Really, when the pandemic first hit and programs started to shut down, the public buildings team did see that as an opportunity to go in and do some work. And I know a lot of their time has been monopolized really with school buildings and making sure ventilation and filtration updates were taking place. And we have a few other projects. But really, the work that's being done over there, there's some inside work with asbestos and abatement that needed to be done, especially on the ceiling and the roof. There was some roof work. There was some exterior siding work that needed to be done. Floors needed to be redone. The bathrooms in there were, you know, needed to be updated as well to be ADA compliant. So right now, when you walk in, the room off to your left-hand side is completely boarded up. You can't go in there. The fireplace room on your right-hand side, the seldom used, is open a little bit, and you know, there are a couple things you're able to do. But hopefully, in the next few months, really after the winter time, that will be fully reopened again. We can get, you know, our seniors back in there. We can have community events. I know the Ward 2 Civic Association always does the annual bean supper. I love going to that. So hopefully soon things will be taken care of.
We should mention that the outside, the recreational space, has also been rehabbed.
That's right. Yeah, I know. I remember a few years ago, the clubhouse celebrated its 100th anniversary, and I was able to go to that, and there was a sign out where everyone could sign their name, just as a little remembrance in there. But you know, there's a new special playground that's in there. We've got the basketball courts that are all redone. There's a baseball diamond in the corner as well. And it's just a really nice space for people to come together of all ages. And now that those updates have been made, you know, you can see more of those come the summertime.
Very good. We now are going to move to some no parking signs that were installed recently. I think we're talking about 2 streets in particular.
Right. So, you know, as your counselor, you know, most of the issues I end up dealing with are usually parking-related issues. And just in Quincy, we got more and more people. There's a lot of congestion, and sometimes it can be difficult just to get down your own street. In one instance on Burns Ave, which is off Quincy Ave, a few months back there was an instance where an emergency vehicle tried to get down the street, and they couldn't get all the way down there. And luckily, it wasn't as dire an instance.
But it could have been.
But it could have been, and that was the point. So we surveyed the neighborhood, and ultimately they decided that it would be a good idea to have no parking on one side of the street on Burns Ave. And we had a similar issue over on Lebanon Street off of Washington, kind of over by the business district. There are a few restaurants there. And people just having trouble going up and down their own street, finding parking for themselves and guests. So no parking signs went up there as well. The feedback that we've gotten from the residents so far is that those have been successful. And I do just want the people at home to know that if something like that is going on in your neighborhood, that the place to start would be to reach out either to TPAL, the traffic parking, I think alarms and lighting department, and our new director over there, Ed Grennan, and myself, just with an email to let us know that it's a problem, and we can always have them take a look at it to see what we can do to resolve any issues.
I do want to step back just one moment. I failed to mention the change in street sweeping and the change to your schedule in Ward 2.
That's right. I mean, this past week, any street sweeping that was done before the storm, I think they might have to go back and do it again. But originally, street sweeping was set to be done within Wards 1 and 2 in the city. I believe it was this past week, October 25th, but then also on November 15th. So be mindful of that and just trying not to park your car on the street during those times. I know you can't always do it. A lot of people don't have access to a driveway. I am one of those people, so I know it can be a little difficult, but just do your best to move those cars around so that your street can get cleaned.
So it has been moved to the 15th of November.
Yep, and that was already slated to go in, and I know DPW would do a great job to make sure that, especially after the storm, that they hit those streets again if they already went by once.
As anyone said, someone brought this to my attention a couple of days ago, that it actually snowed a year ago Halloween.
I know, you can never be too careful, so I know growing up sometimes I had to wear a jacket over my costume, and I really didn't like doing that, but luckily my parents knew better and they'd help me out. So just be mindful of that, and we'll see what happens this Halloween. I know this Saturday we're supposed to get some maybe heavy rain again, so just a reminder to folks to stay safe out there and be mindful of some of the weather patterns too.
But by Sunday, Halloween, I suppose the trick-or-treater day, that's supposed to be nice.
It is. It absolutely is. So I'll have my bucket full of candy, and
there you go.
we'll see. Some of the neighborhood kids come by in their costumes.
And maybe me. Maybe some of the staff at
You're
QATV
more than welcome.
Okay.
You grew up in Ward 2, so
That's and I love candy. Let's talk about the compressor station. It's always a topic, though it's in Weymouth. It borders your ward. It
Right.
borders Quincy.
Right. I mean, it really is the whole Fall River Basin that this will affect. So Quincy Point, Germantown, and of course North Weymouth as well. But this is something we've been fighting for 4 or 5 years now at this point. Most recently, last week, I sat down with our Director of Emergency Management Response, Ali Sleeman, to go over some of the emergency response plans that we have if the worst happens over there. It accounts for things like what direction the wind is going in, how we're going to get our seniors out, how we're going to get parents and kids out, and just everyone out of the area if need be. And it made it feel more real, I think, than it has in the past, and really drove home the reasons why we've been fighting this for the last 5 years. And I know there's still some court cases and litigation that the city is going through, and the city of Quincy at least continues to fight this moving forward. And I hope people know that, as your ward councilor, this is something that I care about, impacts my family, impacts my constituents, and we'll continue to fight this until they say we can't.
And we should mention that the operator has had some shutdowns because of issues.
Right, they have. So I believe it went online around this time last year, and within the first, I think 3 or 4 weeks, they had 2 unplanned toxic gas releases. Released at least 10,000 cubic square feet of gas into the air. And at the time, they actually didn't alert the city of Quincy the way that they said they would. So that was another reason why I had to sit down with Ali and see how we've been able to maybe update that relationship and drive home that they do need to follow through, Enbridge being, and notify us when there is a blowdown or an unplanned toxic gas release. So one of the first things I actually wrote as a member of the council this past spring was a resolution, calling attention to these miscommunications, to the unplanned gas releases, and calling for some more insight into what may be done on the city's behalf to honestly, to shut down the station.
Let's stay in that general area and talk about the Fore River Shipyard and what that might see as time progresses.
Yeah, I know. I think I remember it was something like a decade ago where there was an original proposal, or we'll say a concept, really, to reinvigorate that area and put something similar to, I think, Union Point in Weymouth, right, where you have these complexes with a lot of condos and sort of it's its own new neighborhood. And that idea has been kicked around a little bit. I haven't seen someone come forward to put forward a proposal or something like that. But what I can say is that just from an infrastructure standpoint, whether we're talking about water and sewer or even roadways, the city needs to manage what it already has. I know, we had a settlement with the EPA where we need to invest at least $100 million into water and sewer improvements by 2034. And, we need to manage what we have right now before we go and build a whole new neighborhood and make that type of capital investment.
We should mention that East Howard Street, which is in that area, has seen some development, some rather nice development.
Right. I remember when the Watson in particular opened up, which is known as workforce housing, not necessarily your more affordable housing that people are used to, but it's meant for really families that are working. They're getting by, they're making their ends meet, but it's a way for, I think, a lot of people that even grew up in Quincy to apply to that type of workforce housing and be able to stay in Quincy. And there are a few more in that area that are going up as well, and I think they've done a fantastic job in a different way of showing the development that can go in and can actually make sense for the people of Quincy and those that have called Quincy home for a long time.
I think that corner parcel was taken down, and there was some development that is either coming close to that corner or built not too far from that corner.
Right. If people remember, I think there was a lot of rock and quarry over there, and they've blown all of that out, and there's I'm not sure if they're done with it just yet, but that should be coming online probably in the next spring to see more housing like the Watson come online for the people of Ward 2.
Very good. Let's talk about streets and sidewalks, because you probably get a lot of calls.
I do.
About those two. Talk about the capital improvement plan and how that will filter down to your neighborhood.
Yeah, one of the first meetings I had this past spring was with Al Grazioso with DPW, and he did a great job of explaining, well, how does DPW even decide what streets need to be prioritized in the first place? And I'll get to that in a minute, but I just wanted to mention that plan was a total package of $150 million bonded over the next 10 years. $100 million of that will go to roadway improvements, and $50 million of that to water and sewer improvements, so what's underneath our roadways. And for Ward 2, that's going to mean 19 water mains that'll be replaced in some of our major intersections to keep up with demands and development, to be quite frank. And then 33,000 feet of roadways will be redone within Ward 2 over the next decade. And I believe it's 32 or 33 streets that are on that list as well to be redone. And I hope the folks at home know that, if your street isn't on that list, those 30-something streets, then you can always reach out to me and we can advocate and make the case as to why your street needs to be done. I know there are a lot of streets that are, deserving of that attention, and sometimes, we do miss things, but I do want to tip my hat over to DPW because they provide a formula for how they actually decide what streets. It has nothing to do with favoritism or politics. It's just if this formula lines up, then your street gets done. It has to deal with the condition of the road, how many people access that road every day, the condition of the water and sewer infrastructure that's underneath your roadway, because the last thing we want to do is tear up or repave your road and then 2-3 years later have to rip it up and replace water and sewer pipes that are underneath there.
Absolutely.
So we always try to time those up to make sure that we're only digging up your street one time, you get the pipes done, and then you get the roadway done too.
Is there a moratorium on digging up a street after it's been
There is,
repaved?
And my understanding is, I believe it's 5 years. They'll put at a minimum, and we still don't like to see roads be dug up after 6 years or 7 years too. So we always try to schedule that work at the same time to make sure we're not duplicating efforts and wasting taxpayer dollars.
We should mention that I believe streets and sidewalks are separate.
Yes, that is correct. So, and as well, one of the things that I've dealt with the most is sometimes there'll be, a tree that has grown up a little bit, and its roots will really uproot that sidewalk over there. And if something like that does happen, residents should know they can always call me or DPW to get that addressed and flatten out the sidewalk so it's not a tripping hazard.
Let's talk about the American Rescue Plan Act funds and how those are, or how those funds are determined to be spent.
Right.
And I believe a call for public input.
Right. So just as a reminder to the people at home, the city of Quincy got $46.3 million from the American Rescue Plan, which was passed by the Biden administration and Congress this past spring. And, with that, there's a lot of leeway with how really the administration and the city can spend that money. Because it is from the federal government, the administration has full say into how to spend those funds. The city council doesn't have direct oversight the way that we would with local taxpayer dollars or something like that. So with that, I know the administration has sort of prioritized some items. To be frank, I thought the way that Quincy should be handling it was the same way that a lot of other towns around us have handled it, and that was just to have a meeting with the public, or an informal information session, or hold an online survey, so that we could get direct feedback from people on where we should be allocating that type of funding. I think a lot has changed during COVID, and I know, through the Quincy 400 initiative a few years ago, there is a basis of kind of maybe where we want to see funds go, but things may have changed, and, it's never, I don't think it's too much to be asking sometimes where that funding should go, and just asking people their opinion. People want to make sure that you're being heard. So with that, I did put forward a resolution asking that of the administration. Whether they do that at this point is up to them. But I hope people know that they should always feel free to speak up and make sure their voices are heard.
And again, I'm sure that this is a result of what you hear speaking with residents.
Yeah, absolutely. People want to see, we don't always agree on where funding should go. And I don't know that I have a better grasp than, let's say, Mark, as where the money should go. And oftentimes when I listen to people, I hear new things, I get new ideas, or it's just good to see where people want the funding to go. And I think that's the way that you should approach government overall, is always be asking people, because at the end of the day, I'm a constituent, I'm a resident just like everyone else. I also live in the neighborhood, and I might not know any better than my next door neighbor. So you shouldn't be afraid to have those types of conversations. And I just also wanted to point out, with my day job up at the State House, is legislators are still going through public hearings up there about how the state should be spending that money. So I think if it's good enough for surrounding towns and municipalities, if it's good enough for the state, then Quincy should be doing that too.
We talked about the Four River Clubhouse and celebrating a birthday. I believe you said 100.
100,
So let's
right.
go 101 and talk about the American Legion Post 95.
Right. Yeah. The longest active post here in Quincy is Legion Post 95, home in Quincy Point. They moved a few years ago, so they're now at 500R in the back, Washington Street. They have a great space over there. They've put in a lot of work. I'm proud to be a Sons of the American Legion member, qualified through my grandfather. But I was able to attend their 101st birthday celebration a few weeks back with Council President Liang, and together we were able to present them with a citation just commemorating the 101 years and all that they've done for the neighborhood and for our veterans.
You were also at the Quincy Firefighters Retirement Banquet recently too, another
Right.
reason for celebration.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think within that room there were 283 years worth of experience that retired from our fire department. And I'm not sure if you saw, even more recently, we hired a few more firefighters to replace that experience that we lost. So I just want to say congratulations to the firefighters that retired, and of course to our firefighters that are now joining the force for the first time. We really appreciate all that they've done and all that they will do for the people of Quincy.
We're going to stay with public safety and talk about the Quincy Police this time, and talk about the Patch Project. What is that exactly?
Sure. So I think, as many people know, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I really do appreciate the effort of Quincy Police in terms of raising funds for research and for support for something like that. And so you can go online at their website, and they're selling pink police patches, QPD patches, and a few different items for purchase, and all the proceeds from that merchandise goes to the Pink Patch Project to help support survivors of breast cancer and those going through breast cancer.
Certainly, certainly a worthy contribution there.
Absolutely. And I just got my patch in the mail. I should have brought it with me. That would have been
show
something
and tell.
nice to have.
This program is show and tell.
I know, but we can always get a photo and have it up for people. And there's a few more days left in October, so we'll have to get the website out there so people can make sure to go online and get something if they can.
I know this isn't in your ward, but while we're talking about public safety headquarters and the movement there has seemed to slow down a bit.
Right. I think you've seen that with a lot of projects, and for the most part, it's because of COVID. I think, as I mentioned earlier, our public buildings team has been really focused on making sure that our schools had the ventilation and filtration systems that were needed. As a former school committee member, as the vice chair of the school committee in 2020, I can tell you that there was a lot of work that needed to be done, and that's where most of their time went for really all of last school year. And I know we have a few other projects that are going around, and they're doing their best. You can't hire everyone all at once. So that, I think, coupled with some just the shipping delays and back orders for materials, you've seen it. I know even I have a couple friends and relatives, they're trying to do some work on their house. They can't find a contractor to do any of the work, or you can't find someone that's in the trades to kind of tackle those issues. So it's not just at the home projects, it affects the city work as well.
Well, I know during the summer, lumber prices were extremely high.
Yes, they were.
They've come down a little bit, but they are still elevated.
Right, and so even the cost of materials has gone up, and that can alter timelines on a project. It can alter even if someone needs to come back. I'm not sure if the administration will need to come back to the council, even for additional funds for some of these things. And of course, we'll have to make that assessment when that comes up, if it comes up. But these are priorities for the city of Quincy, especially the public safety complex.
You mentioned the schools, and I do just want to, I suppose, make an observation, and maybe you can throw in a comment. Going back to school has seemed to be pretty seamless dealing with the pandemic.
Yeah, I'd say so. Working with that team, working with Superintendent Mulvey, Assistant Superintendent Perkins, and the whole superintendent leadership team, the reentry task force, they have been on top of absolutely everything. You do the best you can. I think especially during the pandemic. I remember when we first closed schools and we said 2 weeks, ended up being a little longer than that, and then even re-entering school last year and giving parents the option for in-person or for remote learning, and the phase-in approach we had to do when dealing with graduations at the time. But this fall, I think it's gone a lot better. We're still following those health and safety precautions that the state has in place, and it's just making sure that, as we said when we were trying to reopen schools, was making sure that kids have an opportunity to learn in person 5 days a week and make up for any lost time. And that's what we've been able to do.
And we should mention that masks are still required.
Yeah, so I know masks are still required by the state within K-12 public schools, and I believe that mask mandate was actually extended to January 15th as well. So, that's what we have to do according to the state, but I would say that most parents are happy that their kids are back in school 5 days, and we're slowly re-entering some sense of normalcy when it comes to that.
Just a quick story. As a parent, my son, who was 16 at the time, the remote learning was a challenge. It was a challenge for him. It was a challenge for me as a parent. And I'd have to check in to make sure his game system was off. And even when it was off, he told me, "Well, Dad, I still see it out of the corner of my eye. I see the box in the corner of the room." So it was always a distraction. And I know that children learn better when they're physically
right
at school.
Right. Well, I know those teenagers will always find a way to find a technicality or something like that. Oh, I can see out of the corner of my eye. I was probably, I would be doing the same thing,
I get it.
if
I
I
get
went
it.
through that. But I think we're just happy to be back, and people have the option for 5 days a week. And I know QPS put in the work over the summer too. We had a lot of virtual academies to make sure that any gaps that may have been missed due to remote learning were filled in. And I know that moving forward, that there's still some work to do as far as that's concerned. And I know that just from a city council perspective, we're committed to making sure that Quincy Public Schools has the funds it needs to make sure our students are successful.
And we should mention that it was a challenge. I said parents, I said students, teachers. It was a challenge for teachers to basically conduct class remotely
Oh, absolutely.
and to keep these kids engaged.
Right. My cousin is a fourth grade teacher in another district, but even just hearing directly from her, you're juggling in person, you're juggling remote, you're trying to figure out the schedule. She has 2 kids of her own that are in public school too, and just as a parent, I guess you're teaching from home, or she was in her case, and just trying to figure out, okay, how am I supposed to, some days go in person and teach in person. Some days I'll teach remotely. Some days I'll teach remotely from home. Some days I have to stay home to make sure my kids have what they need. Our teachers did so much over the last year. They really did go above and beyond, and I know a lot of our public-facing workers had to do that, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, so I just want to tip my cap to them as well, because I know it does sometimes seem like an afterthought, but we don't get through last year without them.
And on that note, I believe we've come to the end of the program. Just a couple of minutes left. If you have anything you'd like to say that maybe we haven't covered in your ward specifically.
No, I think we did a pretty good job of going around, through the ward and in the neighborhood, as you say. But I just want people at home to know that if they ever have a comment, question, or concern, that my door, my virtual door at this point is always open. You can give me a call at 617-376-1352. You can always send me an email at aandronico@quincyma.gov. And of course, the last thing, which I think we talked about months back, was the constituent services website I have at www.anthonyandronico.com, where you can request assistance with an issue. You can find phone numbers for different departments within the city. You can take a constituent survey just so I have feedback on the issues that you want me to tackle. And hopefully I'll see everyone soon in the neighborhood.
Very good. That was a fitting end. I feel
think
like I
so.
don't need to say anything now. Thank you, Anthony, for joining me today.
Thanks as always for having me. I appreciate it.
And thank you at home for watching. Please continue to watch QATV for more locally produced programming.